So what did I write over summer 2022? Let's talk about it. Hey guys, obviously I'm in a different place. I'm outside, I'm filming this video. There's someone not too far in the distance playing Taylor Swift, You Belong With Me. So let's talk about what I wrote this summer because I had a great writing summer. So the first thing that I did this summer was kind of, teenage boys are playing basketball in the yard across from mine and having a great time. So they will be adding commentary in this video. But the first thing that I did this summer that was kind of like a loose goal of mine, but that I wasn't confident I was actually going to do, was I finished my book. I finished my novel, Feeding Habits, which is a book that I've been writing for a really long time. I started it in April of 2020 and I finished it on the last day of June in 2022. It took me 2 years and 3 months to write. So it's hard to tell the word count on how much I wrote of Feeding Habits. And that was because I did a lot of revisions when I got home from school. So to sort of also clarify what I'm referring to as summer here, I'm not just talking about the actual summer months. I'm a student, so my summer basically started in April, like mid-April, and ended now is like September 5th when I'm talking to you. So today is pretty much the last day of my summer. So I didn't do a lot of actual drafting of Feeding Habits because I was doing developmental edits on the book. So I wrote 2 new chapters in Feeding Habits, a full rewrite of chapter 7 and a full rewrite of Something Held, which was, I think, chapter 9. It's now chapter 10 of the book / like the final chapter of the book. So I had added a lot when I was doing revisions because I basically had to write brand new content from the floor up. Chapter 7 in particular, I just completely rewrote. It's very different from the original. So that was a lot of fun. I think that chapter ended up being like 7,000 words long. At the beginning of the summer, Feeding Habits was around like 62,000 words or something around there. And I ended up cutting out about like 10,000 words of the book and ended up, of course, at like, 51, 52,000. By the end of it, the draft is around like 60, 62,000. So I ended up just adding basically what I had cut out of the book. So yeah, that's Feeding Habits. I have vlogs of me finishing this book if you want to check them out. I'm just happy that it's done. I can brush off my hands guilt-free and be like, goodbye. I never want to think about you again because I have been writing that book for too long. I'm going into my final year of university. I don't need to be writing the same book that I was writing when I was in first year. I'm good. So the second thing I did this summer was I drafted my novel, Seventh Virtue. So Seventh Virtue is an adult fantasy book, which is very different to Feeding Habits, which is adult literary fiction. So Seventh Virtue is kind of a book that started as a personal project for me. It was just supposed to be something that I was doing for funsies. And then I realized I wanted to take it on as more of a full-time project because I fell in love with genre fiction again. So I didn't actually do a lot of drafting for Seventh Virtue until August. And that's because, of course, I was spending a lot of my summer writing Feeding Habits, just trying to finish the book. So when I got home from school, I didn't really do much writing until about like June. I had drafted a teensy bit of Seventh Virtue in May and I didn't really write in April. So by the time June came around, I took the entire month to finish Feeding Habits. July, I was doing Camp NaNoWriMo, which I will talk about in a second. So of course, I didn't have any time to draft Seventh Virtue until August. So I ended up writing about 26,500 words. Usually on average, I average 40,000 words of drafted work in a summer, which I think is pretty comparable considering all of the work that I did because I didn't just do drafting this summer. So I finished up chapter 9. I wrote 10, 11, 12, 13, and I'm working on 14. So kind of like equivalent to 5 chapters of work. So if you want to learn more about this project, I will link a video in the description where I talk all about it. It's contemporary fantasy. It's kind of like the love of my life right now. I love it so much. So the next thing I did was I outlined Seventh Virtue for Camp NaNoWriMo. So I have a video of me actually documenting my entire July if you want to check that out. But I did a couple of things. I actually have an entire video talking about all of that. So I will link it in the description so I don't repeat so much. But to summarize, I created a Save the Cat beat sheet for the book. I'm a pantser, but I just wanted to fill out the beats, mostly so I could see which beats I'd already hit in the book. And surprise, surprise, I had beat for beat pretty much hit every single beat I wanted to hit, every single beat in Save the Cat up until Fun and Games. I was like mid Fun and Games was perfectly done. So that was very helpful for me when I wanted to figure out what I needed to do with the rest of the book. I fleshed out the magic system of Seventh Virtue, which was like the biggest task I've ever done. And I am so happy I did it because I have used that Bible that I created so many times while I've been drafting. But fleshing out the magic system was so important. I'm literally so relieved that I did that because it has made the drafting process so much easier. Who knew world building a little bit before writing your complicated fantasy novel could help you? I don't know. I also fleshed out the world of Seventh Virtue, sort of some more of the world building stuff alongside the magic, of course. So finally this summer, I wrote a short story. I just wrote one single short story. I took a huge break from short fiction. The last time I wrote like a real full-length short story was November of 2021, and that was because I'd been writing a short story every single month for that year. It was a goal of mine, and I completed the goal, but I was exhausted. By the end of it, I think I'd written 16 short stories. I went above and beyond way too much, and I was like, nah, I don't want to write short fiction anymore. So I took a bit of a break. So that's basically all I did this summer. So I had asked you guys to send me in some questions. Thank you to everybody who last minute sent in their questions because I wanted to add them into this video. So let's answer them right now. So the first one is, have you had any revelations about writing lately in terms of writing technique or process that have helped you with a current project? This is a really good question. I think in terms of revelations, mostly that what I write and what I like to write can change. And like, I don't need to overthink that so much when I'm in the moment, but just to more focus on the actual writing itself, because I have been kind of in limbo personally where I'm really not sure what I want to write anymore. I'm very confused, and I've been really enjoying reading young adult again, which if you told me from 2020 that I love YA again, I would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And just the fact that I'm here again now, like, things have sort of derailed a little bit, but kind of in a good way because I've opened myself up to new experiences. I mean, this is not really a revelation I've had recently. It's kind of been a revelation that's been building for a long time. But basically that no kind of fiction is better than other kinds of fiction. No kind of, writing is better than other kinds of writing. And I can learn so much from doing several things. If you're a writer and you only write one type of fiction, that's okay. I think it is cool though. Maybe try it as a challenge to try to diversify what you write. I've honestly found that at least that works for me. It might not work for everybody, but diversifying what I write has, I think, taken my work to the next level because I approach literary fiction in a very different way now that I write a lot of fluffy genre fiction, and sometimes the genre fiction is very serious too, but it's nice seeing the complete stark contrast between my characters bickering in Seventh Virtue and my characters having a mental breakdown in feeding habits, for example. That is kind of a process thing that I've realized, oh, I don't need to just be kind of locked into one thing because I decided I wanted to write that and now I just don't want to change my mind or whatever. That has helped me kind of free up sort of my emotional availability for projects, and also has opened up avenues for more projects that I could write. And what is better in life than having an abundance of things you can write? I don't see how that can be a negative thing. I'm currently writing a series, and I finished the first draft of my book. I'm finding it hard to let it sit, and my fingers are itching to start a new project. Should I work on my sequel or have a break overall? I mean, this is really up to you. For me, I am the kind of person, I totally get what you're saying, especially writing series. When I write sequels for the fostered books, I just jump into them pretty immediately. I don't even take breaks. I remember, especially with the earlier books, the next day I'd be writing the next book. So if you want to write a book, I think a lot of people follow certain rules that we hear in online writing community. Oh, take a break from writing after you finish a book. And I don't think taking a break is a bad thing. I actually really encourage it if that's what works for you. And that's sort of what I'm getting at here. There's no one correct way to do anything. So if you feel you really have inspiration and are, zesty for drafting a new book, just jump into it and see if that works. If it doesn't, take a break, but it wouldn't hurt to just kind of try it if that's what you're kind of itching to do. So kind of follow your gut on that. Really encouraging writers to trust themselves is something that I really try to focus on this channel. And that's because the only thing that's going to make you a better writer is finding out how you are a writer. If you don't know how you write, if you don't understand what works for you and you're just following what other people do or what other people say, it's going to be a little bit harder, I think, to develop long-term as a writer. This is coming from somebody who's been writing for, nearly 10 years. Something that I've learned is follow your gut, follow what works for you, because you need to develop your own process. If not, it's not necessarily going to last very long. In what ways have you improved most with your writing? Oh, this is a great question, because I'm preparing a fun little sneaky video for Fostered's anniversary. I can't remember how old Fostered is. Is it turning 8? I don't know. I can't remember. I'll have to look into it. It's a whole grown child by now that could speak to me. And so I've been rereading book 1 just for a thing that I'm doing. And it's so interesting to see the change in like the actual like writing itself. Now, of course, my writing has improved. I mean, if you've been writing for a long time, you're going to improve in everything. So I could just answer everything for this. But I'm looking at like the style of the writing and sort of the grasp on dialogue and the grasp on description and setting and atmosphere and theme. And it's so different now to how I write, but at the same time, it's interesting looking at the foundation. So I don't have like an exact like most improved. I definitely improved mostly on this thing, because I don't think I sucked particularly bad at anything necessarily when I first started writing. I was just kind of like flat, like I mean like average on everything. Like dialogue was average, not even average, but like they were all at the same level, like maybe a little below average, because of course I was just starting out. It's hard to quantify, because like looking back at 13-year-old Rachel's writing in Fostered and then looking at Seventh Virtue, which I mean are quite tonally similar, like when I look at them I'm like, wow, there's just such a vast difference. And I mean, if you want to check out like for yourself, how has Rachel's writing improved since she first started? Like, if you're wondering, like you started writing last year, for example, if you're a viewer of mine and you're wondering what will happen in the next 8-9 years, I do have videos where I line edit my old writing, and I haven't done one in a long time, but check those out because you can actually literally see the difference in how I approach things. I think something that is a little different for me is that I've become a bit more open to everything as a writer. I know it's not really how my writing itself has improved, but I think I've done a lot of development and growth in the last 2 years about my process and about not being a dick to certain types of fiction. I think that has actually helped me out for the better, because now I see the beauty in so many more different types of writing. I'm not just limited to literary fiction anymore. I am in love with poems. I'm in love with genre. I'm in love with this person's writing, this person's writing. It's not just limited to a certain style anymore. And I think that's just exciting to see within myself. Who would you choose to play your characters in a live action adaptation? I don't really have the best like people. There's like one guy, the guy who plays Obama in the what is his name? I don't remember. And then he's also in, I know him because me and Sarah watched the like recreation of Ophelia. It was like a Ophelia retelling. It's just called Ophelia on Netflix. What's his name? That guy, Obama movie. Looks like Darren is what I'm saying. I'm just thinking of Darren immediately because I've been writing a lot with Darren. Devin Terrell, Darren Energy. That's his name. I don't really have anybody for Reeve. Like Reeve kind of looks like, I think her name is pronounced Alice Pajani. Anyway, so she kind of looks like Reeve, sort of more like Energy. Young Hugh Dancy looks like Harrison. That's like the only one that's solid. I don't really have like a face claim for Lonan. Like not anybody that's really solid, which kind of makes drawing him a pain because I don't really have anybody I can point to. What's your best overall editing tip? I think it's to understand your intention before you go into editing something. If you don't know why you're getting feedback, don't get the feedback. I think a lot of writers are like conditioned like to think, I have to be able to get feedback and just get feedback on this work because like that's just part of the process of writing. I thought that. I realized the longer I've been in my degree and sort of the more critique I get and sort of the more I understand my own work, don't go into getting feedback if you don't know what you wanted out of the work, because the feedback is 99% of the time not going to be helpful for you. If you don't know your own intention, it's going to be hard to revise. Now, I know a lot of people, or some people might view feedback as like, oh, you should just take everybody's feedback. Personally, how I view feedback is there to help the writer attain their vision. If you don't know what your vision is, if you don't know what your intention is, what you want for the project, you might not be ready to get critique on your work yet. So I know that that's not necessarily like a how to revise tip, but it's just like a precautionary tale, because you can spend a lot of time hearing things about your work that you might not necessarily need to hear right now because you don't really need that feedback yet. You got to understand what you want out of the work so that when somebody gives you feedback, you can translate it through your intention and therefore better understand how to apply it to your edit, whether or not you will even apply it. For example, what are your favorite themes or tropes to write about? I'm so bad at like identifying tropes. I used to hate enemies to lovers, but then I realized I wrote one. Harrison and Lonan are literally enemies to lovers, and like they're slow burn as hell. Like they hate each other in books 2 and 3, going after each other. There's like a slight like, I don't know, I'm trying to like be a better person and like apologize to you moment that Lonan kind of like produces toward the end of book 3. They have like a little bit of like a, I don't know, developing friendship. Book 4 comes around and they are a bit more allied. They don't really trust each other, but you know, they're a little bit more allied. Book 5, they are much closer, like in terms of friends. Like they're friends. I would say they're friends at that point. Toward the end of book 5, there might be some, I don't know, like there might be some tension. Oh, what are we spotting here? Romantic tension? Oh my goodness. So yeah, there might be a little bit of drama there. By the time we get to the end of book 5, they are not talking. They are mad at each other. And book 6, I'm pretty sure they're probably under behind the scenes, kind of like in some sort of a relationship that we don't really know about because we're not in their point of view. So I don't know. That's the best thing I've ever written, I think, honestly, the progression of Harrison and Lonan's relationship. So I think that would be my favorite. I'm currently writing a thing, right person, wrong time. I've been loving that. That's been kind of hilarious to write in a very like gutting way. I will literally claw to the end of the earth to watch a slow burn romance or read about a slow burn romance. Like, it will motivate me to get my life together. My skin will be clear by the end of it, everything. What do you do when you get feedback on your work past the point where you had the enthusiasm to revise it? I don't know if this is solicited or unsolicited that the person is referring to. I would not get critique on my work if I no longer wanted to revise it. Again, I think a lot of people are conditioned because of the internet or, you know, because of what they hear in writing programs or whatever, that, you know, they kind of always need to be listening to people's feedback. I don't agree with that. I think when you think a story is done, I think one thing that writers also should learn to develop, and what I encourage people to learn, is to understand when your work is done. Call it done. It doesn't need to be finished. It just needs to be done. I would not be getting feedback on my work past that point of it being done. So with a short story of mine, say I'm done revising it, unless I feel like I want to revise it again, at that point, I'm not looking for feedback. So when that happens, most of the time, I just put the feedback away. Like, again, I've called it done. I don't necessarily need to look at this anymore. You can keep it later if you want to look at it again, but when that happens, it can be a bit of a bummer. But yeah, the number one thing is like to be proactive about that is don't seek feedback for something that you don't really want to get feedback on anymore. It's not productive for you or the person who's giving you the feedback, because you're likely not going to use it if you're in a position where you didn't even want the feedback in the first place. So it's like kind of a time saver to just not even bother with that sort of in the first place. And that leads us to the end of this video. That was the last question. Let me know how your summers went. It's fun to do kind of chill videos where I talk to you on my balcony. So if you want more balcony videos, let me know in the comments. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye.